hear me all right? I've got a slightly dodgy microphone clip, so I might have to be a bit agile on stage. So hi, loads of people, brilliant. Nice to see John in the front row as well. Always good to have a friendly face in the front row smiling at you. As kindly introduced, I've come up from Cornwall. I work in all sorts of different sectors. I try and be sector non-specific in the sense that I'm helping teams to improve. I'm generally working with teams and people to actually improve what they're doing, and agile is a way of doing that, a way of working, a way of being. Have no note slides either, so who knows what I'm going to say. My opening slide, changing places, changing time, changing thoughts, changing future. I was in Venice last month and went to the Peggy Guggenheim Museum, and this was up on the wall, and I totally fell in love with it straight away, because it really, to me, kind of encompasses what we're going through at the moment in terms of how the world is moving so quickly and the business world is having to change and adapt to that all the time. So it's become a bit of a kind of a slide, and I've got a few different photos. I'll stand up on the stage. I'm not as tall as Louise, so you won't see me if I stand down there. I think it's hopefully you can all see me okay. So we've got this thing happening where in lots of different sectors that we've got this kind of convergence happening. So finance and technology is converging, has been for years and years and years now, but it's really starting to ramp up. And this whole kind of evolution of fintech. So I'm working with a few fintech companies down in Cornwall. So you might know of Crowdfunder, whole new way of investing money, different types of models and different types of organisation. So I work with a company called Tuesday as well, who are changing the way that we manage our direct debits. So things like when you share a house, rather than one person having to pay that direct debit, actually being able to split that between that and taking advantage of some of these things that are happening with open banking. And these guys are already in that game, like Louise was saying, this is already happening. And at the moment, they're kind of taking advantage of the slow-moving pace of the existing businesses within the industry. They can move much faster, but you can too, if you're an enterprise, if you're a startup, obviously. That's already working, but there's this window of opportunity. There's this opportunity for you guys to really start to engage, to retain your customers more and to offer more value and more service to them, and better service. And the landscape is changing, as I say, so I'm going to put a very old-fashioned, I'm going to try and put a very old-fashioned, oh, no, back. This is good, isn't it? So this is quite an old-fashioned, back in the 70s, Porter's Five Forces, and what a lot of kind of big companies, I feel, have really depended on over the years is having these things where actually we can stave off competition because we have this supplier power, we have switching, the barriers to entry, all these different things have actually been very difficult for new businesses, new startups to actually break into the market. But technology is exploding that. It's pulling those things apart. So it means that new businesses, new enterprise from all over the world can come and break into your markets. But also there's new markets evolving, there's new products. So we've got this kind of diversification thing going on where we've got new products, new markets emerging. So this is offering the end user, the consumer, the customer, more convenience, more choice, more alternatives, and it's personalised and it's based on data, yes, but it's providing knowledge, So me as a small business, me as an individual, I can get more information and more knowledge, and that's not just in the finance sector, that's in health, it's in education, it's in all sorts of different sectors where we're starting to see this convergence with technology. So we need to kind of move, don't we? And we need to create the types of environments that actually help us to kind of thrive and sustain our businesses in this environment. So so now I'm pausing, waiting for the slide to move, and it's not going to. There it goes. So we need to create an environment that supports innovation. It supports the generation of value. It supports growth, but it also supports well-being. And I think one of my emphases when I work with businesses does come into this well-being. You know, actually creating happy, productive teams that are working for your business. And how we do that is by being more agile, by improving things. So there's a big difference, though, to me, between being agile and doing agile. Yeah. So actually, quick show of hands, who's actively agile at the moment, you would say? Yay. And how many of you are new to it? Not many. Cool. So we're already in the mix. We're doing agile, yeah? We're implementing these methods and technologies. Now I've got, oh, it didn't change. So this difference between being agile and doing agile. So I'm going to play a very quick game with you guys. Anybody familiar with the I have never game? Yeah? Okay. Not that topic that you're thinking, okay? We're going to stick to agile. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw some statements up on the presentation, hopefully. And what I'd like you to do is, if you've never, or I guess I say you aim to never do these things, I'd like you to stand up, okay? If you do, then just stay sat down. That makes sense? So, and I'll explain a little bit more once we get through them. Okay, so if you never, as a rule, delay the delivery until completely ready, stand up. Cool. If you never insist on written orders, stand up. You can keep standing up if you want as well. If you never haggle over precise wording, stand up. If you complete unimportant jobs first, if you never complete unimportant jobs first, stand up. If you never insist on perfect work, stand up. If you never insist on doing everything through the appropriate channels, stand up. This is good, you're an agile lot. If you never permit shortcuts to expedite decision making, stand up. Now I have to do this to if you never refer all matters to committee for further study and consideration, stand up. Cool. So, oh, and if you never make the team as large as possible, never less than 5, stand up. Ooh, lots of people stood up. This is good. So all these things are barriers that are limiting our agility. You can sit down again now. I should have got you all to do a little dance while you were stood up, keep you awake this morning. So all these things are limiting our agility. So those of you who stood up, brilliant, because you've got this natural values and beliefs and attitudes and behaviours that actually make us more agile. Now, any guesses where these statements come from? The Agile Manifesto, no. The polar opposite almost. So, it is, yes. So this is actually, all these statements are from an old CIA guide on how to sabotage your productivity in the workplace. So these were given as guides to allies to actually help them to disrupt productivity and stop people being productive in the workplace. So, you know, when you kind of think of it like that, when I saw that, I love this. I fell in love with it straight away, and it keeps sneaking into my presentations because I just can't resist. But as I say, those of you who are standing up, those values and beliefs are the kind of values and beliefs. So, you know, not insisting on perfect work, you know, delivering things before they're completely ready. All these things mean that we're being agile rather than doing agile. Because doing agile doesn't mean that you're agile. okay? If you're only doing agile, unfortunately, you're still on the right-hand side. No. Unfortunately, you're still on the right-hand side of the manifesto. Yeah, you're still focusing on processes and tools. You're still focusing on documentation and planning. You're not thinking about the collaboration, the solutions, working solutions, improving your organization and the behaviors that go with that. So when we talk about business agility, we're not just talking about the technology, we're not just talking about the developers, we're talking about the whole organization. We're talking about the development of the product, the development of services, the development of the team as well, our leadership function, the atmosphere that we have within our organizations, the vibe that our organizations give out. Is it an agile vibe or is it a more traditional vibe, shall we say? And are we seeing this as a challenge or are we seeing this as a struggle? Because actually our language that we use is really, really important to help us on that journey. Oh no, pony photo, that could stay. So when we're asking our teams, when we're asking the people that work within our organizations to be agile, what we're doing is we're asking them, you know, we're painting this picture. There is chaos under the heavens and the situation is excellent. This is fantastic, guys. We've got so much opportunity. You know, there are endless opportunities for us to grow and develop our businesses and our customer engagement and all these different things. But actually, we're asking people to operate in this space that's very chaotic, yeah? And chaos is emerging patterns. So we're asking people, yeah, down here, when we're close to certainty, we know what we're doing, we're all in agreement what we're doing, then yeah, it's simple, and we can use this predictive planning approach. But the further away we get from certainty, the further away we get from agreement, we have to start to look at things differently. And we're asking people to step outside of their comfort zones. Yeah, so we need to have this kind of adaptive planning. We're asking people, we want you to do adaptive planning, we want you to identify these emerging patterns, we want you to grow our business. And if we want to do that, then we have to create a safe space to do that. Yeah? We're asking people to step outside their comfort zone. So if your organization, if people don't feel comfortable, if they don't feel safe, if you haven't got a healthy organization where the well-being is looked after and people feel empowered and inspired to do new things, then being agile isn't really an option for you yet, because you have to be in that safe space to be able to do that. Would you agree? Yeah? Excuse me while I sip some water. So, and you can look at Pony. The thing or the person, not really a person, that I believe has taught me more about agility than anyone else are horses. Yeah? Because you cannot plan galloping around a cross-country course full pelt and without putting yourself into danger. You have to adapt, yeah? You have to sense, you have to respond, you have to adapt to every fence. Every stride you take, every fence you cross, you have to adapt. And sometimes he decides that he wants to gallop flat out at the jump, and other times he decides he wants to go and look at what's on over there. So I have to be constantly adapting. And that means that we have to build this relationship. We need to have courage between us. We need to have belief. We need to have trust and rapport. I need to respect him and he respects me. We have a real partnership. I need to have empathy so that I can understand how he's responding. Because I'm a soft kind of human being. You know, I'm a definite carrot when it comes to riding horses and leading and doing things. And I'm definitely a carrot kind of person. I don't tend to use a stick approach. Because I don't find that it works. It just makes people unhappy. And you can't you can beat a horse into submission, but it's not a very nice thing to do. It's better to compromise. It's better to have that relationship. So I kind of often see, you know, my journey in terms of when I'm helping businesses or growing my own business. I also run a not-for-profit down in Cornwall called Software Cornwall, which is all about building the tech sector down there. And I take this kind of agile approach, you know, always adjusting, always sensing, always getting that feedback. and finding out what is happening in my environment so that I can respond and adjust and get around that course in one piece, yeah? Because as soon as I step out that zone, I'm in the danger zone. And if we go back to the kind of comfort zone, you know, we have this area outside of our comfort zone, which is high performance, but then we get into this panic zone. And we need to manage that. We need to stick into our high performance zone without pushing ourselves into the panic or slipping back into our comfort zone. So we need to create this kind of environment that allows us to come up with new ideas, that allows us to be innovative, to be creative, to experiment and to learn. We were talking last night about the head of experimentation, having some fantastic conversations about that. And actually changing the way that we're working and using Agile to help us on that journey, to actually, you know, so seeing Agile as a way of becoming Agile. We need to have more than just our kind of Mensa level intelligence. We now need to start thinking about the different types of intelligence, like emotional intelligence, so that we can work better with the people around us, so that we can be more self-aware. Working in the tech sector is hard. You know, it's hard. I think especially as a woman in the tech sector, it's hard because the environment and the atmosphere. And the more we build this kind of intelligence, because we need a diverse team in order to build products that attract a diverse audience. We need to have this open and inclusive environment where we can encourage connectivity between teams, that things don't just come top down, but actually people can talk to each other across the organisation. We need to be able to foster diversity, challenge old habits. We need to support new initiatives. If people come up with ideas, is support them to follow them through and take them further. And reduce, you know, the things that are limiting us and producing barriers between us. And it's not just about the people on the ground doing this. One of the biggest barriers that I see is senior leadership, yeah? Is actually, Agile is something my teams are doing, yeah? You know, my teams are doing Agile. This is something that I'm kind of, you're still commanding and controlling, you know? You need to be Agile yourself. It's not something that you implement as a tool and send everybody off on a 3-day course. It's far, far more than that. It's a journey, not a destination. You know, the transformation idea is the end goal. You know, it's like the iceberg effect. You're focusing on the end goal and the solution, not all the other stuff going on. We need to get that traction. Can I? No, it's still going forward. That's worrying. Can I get you to flip it on one? And again. Excellent, thank you. So we need to take an agile approach to improving our agility. We need to change. So I've given up on the clicker. I'm just going to wave at the guys in the corner. I'm adapting. I'm sensing. I'm responding. We need to, so we need to take this agile approach to adopting agility, to improving our agility. And I use a cake analogy. So if you think about the layers of your cake as your goal, your design, your testing, your releasing of products, then rather than thinking about eating that cake all at once, eating it one slice at a time. So you still get to eat all the cake, yeah? But actually you might eat half the cake and find you're full. You've met your requirements and you've actually got cake left over, the cake being your time, your resources, your capacity. So think about being agile like eating cake. That's my advice to you guys today. And create your own style of agile. Yeah. So as I mentioned, I don't just work with tech businesses. I work with all sorts of different types of businesses. As you mentioned, I'm working with a staircase manufacturer down in Cornwall at the moment who is designing and building staircases for Salesforce. And I'm working with their design team to help them to be more agile. And this is from some work I did a couple of weeks ago. I was over in Qatar, in Doha, working with a new museum of journalism. And we're looking at how we produce agile curation, agile exhibitions. So actually, rather than the traditional kind of, we lock ourselves in a room for 12, 18 months, we design a whole exhibition, we curate that, and then we launch it, we run it for 4 months, and then it disappears, actually creating this more agile experience. And this is where we kind of, this is why I say you have to create your own style of agile, because every organization is different. So you can kind of use some of the stories that you'll hear as kind of inspiration, but if you try and take them and put them straight into your business, it probably won't work. You have to adapt and evolve it for yourselves. This is, so literally, you know, if you think about how hard, you know, if you think it's hard to change a culture, these guys changed in a week. You know, they went from being very resistant on the first day to, in the last day, me having to put the kind of, remember, take an agile approach to being agile, because they got so excited about it. This was, we take it out of context, so rather than them working on their next exhibition initially, they worked on a moon mission and a Mars mission, not the chocolate bar, the planet. Which was a query when I put the idea to them. But this is where they've picked up their own kind of ideas and their own sense of agility and built that up. And we created their own manifesto as well. So the first 3 days, yes, I was giving them the theory and the logic behind agile and the thinking behind it. But as we went through that week, we started to adopt their agility. What does agile mean to them? What are the values and beliefs that they want to put down to actually guide them on their journey to creating these agile exhibitions and be able to push the limits? Because this is a journalism museum, yeah, in the Middle East. So they're going to want to be pushing the boundaries and then maybe pulling them back or pushing them a bit further forward, being able to change and adapt as they go. And then by the end of that week, we had a fantastic kind of cross-functional board, which was all the different areas, so the different colors of the different areas of the museum teams who initially worked very separately, all coming together to design this new experience of how they were going to develop an exhibition and what that might look like. So, and again, and they've changed the term, so minimum viable experience. That's okay. I'm not going to beat people up about the language. I'm not going to haggle over precise wordings with them. It's what it means to them. So we need to use Agile to connect us, to enable us to collaborate, to enable us to communicate and actually co-produce. So co-design, co-produce with our customers, with our stakeholders, with the different elements of the organization so that we're building a product that's fit. Yeah? Not something that we design and build in isolation based on data or research or whatever it is, because the world is moving too quickly. You know, if you spend a year developing a product, it's kind of going to be too late. I was doing some work with the policing recently, and it's absolutely fascinating how the crime, so organised crime in this country, has learnt to game the system. So things like tax evasion, for example, they have learnt that it takes about 8 years, I think it was about 8 years, to get a tax evasion to court and prosecute. So they open them and shut them down within 4, so that they're never caught. You know, and you've got the same kind of thing that could happen within finance, is that the fintech startups are moving so fast that actually you can't keep up with them. You can't catch them because they're gaming the system. So we need to learn how to do that more. And so I think it's my final slide, bar one, is I play a game called Retrospective Sailing. If you read the Q&A, it mentioned, so I wanted to put it in the end. But this is a game kind of developed and designed over the years, really. And it's a really great way to tell the temperature of your team. If you want to play it, there's a guide on the website. But basically, you draw a boat, you give your boat a name, you put your mission on your hull, and then you identify what are the things that are putting wind in your sails, what's making you go faster, and what are the anchors that are holding you back. This is from another conference that I did. You can see that this ship, I would say, would you say this is a happy ship or a sad ship? Happy? Yeah. It's called the Sunshine Ship. Yeah. So it's a happy ship. It's a happy boat. And that gives me, and this is one of the first things I often do with teams. Now, I have seen teams draw a boat, call it Titanic, okay? Draw an iceberg in front of it, yeah? And do you know what they wrote on the iceberg? Senior management team. Okay? So this gives a real temperature gauge of actually what's going on in the organisation. It helps us to understand in a very open and collaborative way what's going on without pointing fingers at individuals, although in that case they kind of did. Yeah, so try the game, play it, think about being agile, and thinking about creating this working environment that empowers your teams to be more agile. And that's what I'll end on.